Almost 70 years ago, the top movie was Vertigo from Alfred Hitchcock. Volare was the biggest song, and Western TV shows ruled the boob tube back then. The year was 1958. Happy hobby, I'm David Gons. If you're a sports card collector and you're working with a limited budget, that's what we talk about here. That's what we do in this channel. Today, though, we do a little backwards in time, about 70 years almost, to look at the 1958 Topps baseball set. Now, you know I'm a lover of sports card history, and you know I love sports cards in general and sports history in general. This is my series where I go back and I look at the 10 most valuable cards from each set that Topps has produced. We're up to 1958. I've done a bunch already. I've done from 1952 up to now, and I've done a few even in the future. 1960 to 2001 to 1990. There's a whole bunch of them you can find in this series, but today it's all about 1958. And the arrival of the 1958 Topps baseball set marked the beginning of a new era in sports altogether, not just in baseball cards, but all of sports, as it was the arrival of the West Coast teams in American sports world. The arrival of the West Coast teams. So on May 27, 1957, a year before, Major League Baseball owners unanimously voted to allow both the Brooklyn Dodgers and those New York Giants to move to California. Now, the Dodgers left Brooklyn after the 1957 season, where they had played since 1884, becoming known as the Dodgers in 1911, and they moved to Los Angeles. They joined the Giants to become the first two West Coast teams from any major sport, and that began the shift of many East Coast teams out to the West. The 1958 Topps baseball card set showed these Dodgers and Giants in their new hats and their new jerseys for the very first time ever, showing their new locations. So the card fronts announced these players now played for the LA Dodgers and the San Fran Giants. So that's pretty awesome. Interestingly, though, Jackie Robinson, who played football and baseball, he was a superstar in college for UCLA. That's the university. That's Los Angeles already. He already played for UCLA, was with the Dodgers, the Brooklyn Dodgers, his whole career, and his final MLB season was in 1956. And then that's when the Dodgers traded him to the Giants. I bet you didn't realize that. The reason I bet you didn't realize it, because I didn't realize that. I didn't know that.
Whoa, you just blew my mind.
But Robinson chose to retire rather than play for his former arch rivals. And then a year later, both teams would end up moving to the West Coast. So he could have played in Los Angeles had he stayed with the Dodgers and them not trading him and then him not retiring. I thought that was really interesting. Now, there's several reasons why the 1958 Topps baseball card set is special, including the West Coast fact. But it's a much more colorful set than the 1957 set, which we had already mentioned. The 1957 set had the first color photographs in any of Topps offerings. So the 1958 set used color photographs again, but this time they had an ultra colored background, much more colorful background behind them. And they were mostly headshots of players that it really helped them stand out. The 9 different colors they used for the background colors: black, blue, light blue, green, light green, orange, pink, red, and yellow for behind the player's head. Now, some earlier sets did have close-up images, like in 1955 and 1956, but those weren't photographs. So the 1957 set was mostly body shots or action shot, or swinging a bat or something like that. So it was a little farther back. But for kids to get up close images of Hank Aaron and Willie Mays and Yogi Berra, Mickey Mantle, that was a big deal. Opening up some cards and getting up close pictures of those players. So that was pretty awesome. It was like there's comic book superheroes, really. Now, the other thing that's really cool about the 1958 Topps set is the Sport Magazine All-Stars. So we get to see the Sport Magazine All-Stars for the very first time in this set. Topps didn't denote All-Stars before this in any of their sets. Well, in 1951 they kind of did, but not in any of their standard issue sets. Also, Stan the Man Musial joined. He was one of the Sport Magazine All-Stars for this set. That was his first Topps card. We'll talk about that in a little bit. His rookie cards didn't come out until 1948. I mean, he joined the majors in 1941. His rookie card didn't come out until 1948 and 1949 Bowman and Leaf sets. And he was stuck around in Bowman and Leaf Bowman in 1952 and 1953, but he chose not to be on any cards for a few years after that. Finally, Topps convinced him to join on in 1958, and I believe his contract, the money went to. I think he did it as long as Topps contributed money to his charity or something like that. So this was the first year for All-Star cards, as we mentioned, and there were 21 different Sport Magazine All-Star cards to collect. It's really one of the first time a card collector could own two different cards of one of the great players from the same set. So Mickey Mantle had his regular base issue, but he also had an All-Star card. Hank Aaron had his base issue card, but he also had an All-Star card. So that was one of the first times that they'd done that. Sport Magazine's editors picked 12 of the 18 players who started in that 58 All-Star game. So in other words, they picked ahead of time. Now we see the All-Star game players in the Topps update. Those are players that are in the All-Star game of that current year. And then in the Topps update, they release All-Star cards. It wasn't like that back then. First of all, for them to get those cards out, it would have been too quick of a turnaround. So what they did was sports editors picked their own All-Star team, who they thought were the best All-Stars. And so they did pretty good. 12 of the 18 players who started the 1958 MLB All-Star game had cards. They did miss out, though, one of the big ones, 1958 All-Star Bill Mazeroski. They get a pass, though, because Maz's rookie card was just from 1 year earlier, so it was tough for them to imagine that he would have been an All-Star in 58. And really, 58 was the greatest season for Mazeroski's career. So after that, I'm sure they thought of him too much for later sets. So coming into 1958, the Braves were the reigning World Series champions, but it was the Yankees who took them down in 1958. Mickey Mantle and Hank Aaron were the respective MVPs heading into 1958, but it was Boston's Jackie Jensen and Chicago's Ernie Banks who would win the MVP hardware in 1958. Now, it's really interesting about Jensen. This guy was a great player for the Red Sox. He was a fantastic player, but because he had a horrible fear of flying. So all of a sudden, he could deal with the travel between the Northeast teams, but all of a sudden now all these teams are moving westward, and now he has to go to, the West Coast to play against some of the. It was too much for him, so he chose to retire. Can you believe that? Jackie Jensen, you would think is somebody he won an MVP award in the 50s. Think how many great players there were in the 50s. He won an MVP award. And so we lost out on a great career because he was afraid of flying. So speaking of great teams in the Northeast, how about the Yankees? Now, stick around to the end of this article because we're going to share a great piece of Roger Maris trivia at the end of this article. You're going to like that. All right, so let's get into the 10 best cards from 1958 Topps Baseball. Now, we're talking about value of a PSA 5, value of the card in a slab that matches the decade. Okay, we're kind of considering that a collector's grade, the same number as the decade. So we're not going to share any rare, weird cards like errors or variations or anything like that. We'll note what ones might have variations, but for the most part, these are just the straight base cards of the 1958 Topps set. So number one, it's not really a surprise, Mickey Mantle. He's the most valuable card of pretty much any set in the 50s that he's in. And he was in this card is pretty beautiful. He was a nice up close look. He's kind of looking off pensively, but the 1957 card showed him in a full full swing. So that was pretty cool. This one's a little more intimate look at the Mick, right? He's still a young buck, just 26 years old in this picture, and he's already a 6-time All-Star by the time this card came out. Number 2, it's Mickey again, sort of. This time it's World Series batting foes. It's a combo card of Mickey Mantle and Hank Aaron together. How cool would it be to own this card with two of the greatest mashers of all time, facing off against each other with great smiles, even though Mickey's looking at the wrong camera. I feel like, sometimes you take pictures of people and there's always one person that's looking at somebody who's taking a picture over there. They're like, hey, but we're over here. Look this way. All right, move on to number 3. We just talked about number 2. Hank Aaron with the Milwaukee Braves. Now, this is the white lettered version. There's also a yellow letter version. And Topps really had trouble with Hank Aaron. For whatever reason, his 1958 card did have the 2 variants, white and letter. This is the 3rd time in 3 years that there was something either interesting or an error problem or a variant about Hank Aaron's card. Now, Aaron's yellow letter variation is one of about 4 dozen yellow named cards that were available for collectors, including Roberto Clemente and Al Kaline. The yellow letter Aaron card is a little bit cheaper than the white card, so it's something to keep in mind. Number 4, Teddy Ball Game. Ted Williams, Boston Red Sox, PSA 5 here. Now, this is the 3rd and final time Teddy Ball Game would lead off the set as the first card on the checklist. That's pretty cool. It was also his final Topps card as a player, since he'd signed with Fleer in 1959, and they'd do a whole set for him on the side. And he retired from baseball in 1960, but he did have 3 Topps manager cards from his time managing the Washington Senators and the Texas Rangers from 1969 to 1972. That means this set is the only set in all of Topps productions that has Mickey Mantle, Ted Williams, and Stan Musial on the checklist. That makes 1958 Topps pretty special in my book. Number 5, we mentioned him earlier because we're going to do some trivia about this fella in a little bit. Roger Maris with the Cleveland Indians. This is his rookie card. This is the top rookie card in the 1958 Topps set. And it's interesting to note that the most famous and sought-after rookie card in this set is of a player who will likely never make the Baseball Hall of Fame. Oh. Now, Maris obviously gained his fame for eclipsing Babe Ruth's 60 home runs in 1961 with his 61 home runs. And it's interesting to know that while Maris played in the majors for 12 seasons, that 1961 season was the only year he hit over 40 home runs. Sadly, Yankees fans at that time, and even to this day, most likely, they wished it was the Mick who beat the Babe and not the Maris. So that's pretty sad. I'd like to point out, though, that for those Maris haters, it was Maris who won the 1960 American League MVP, not Mantle. And Maris would obviously win it again in 1961. Mantle was second MVP both times in voting for those years. Mantle had the better career, obviously, but it was Maris who led the Yankees statistically in those 2 seasons, and Mantle won the MVP in 62. All right, so now we move on to number 6, Bob Clemente, Pittsburgh Pirates, number 52. From 1957 to 1969, Topps called the greatest Latino hitter of the 20th century Bob Clemente, including this 1958 version. In 1970, I'm guessing someone relayed to Topps that the hitter preferred Roberto, and then the rest is history. While Hank Aaron's cards had both white and yellow name variations, Clemente's background was already yellow, so it was actually the Pittsburgh Pirates team name that came in either yellow or white lettering, which we call a team color match these days. So that's kind of cool. Number 7, Willie Mays. All the way down to number 7. Willie Mays? What? Hey! What's up with number 7? That's pretty rare. He's so low. And it's with his San Fran Giants. If I was a San Francisco Giants fan, This would be the card I'd really try to get. Willie Mays' first Giants card with San Francisco on it. And he kind of has his hat tipped up. You can't really see. They'd love that. That'd be a good one to have in their collection. He would continue to wear SF on his hat all the way until 1973, this is when he returned to New York City with the Mets. Number 8, Sandy Koufax, the Los Angeles Dodgers. With an 11-11 season and 40 starts and less than 1K per inning in 1958, the 22-year-old Koufax remained just another guy for a couple more seasons. Number 9, we're coming back to the Mickey Mantle All-Star, New York Yankees, number 47, PSA 5. It's true Mickey Mantle All-Star cards, along with the Stan Musial All-Star cards, were multi-printed. That makes them a little less scarce, a little less valuable. But it's also true that this really is a work of art. This is the Mickey Mantle card I have. Let's see. It's somewhere. I think it might be right there where you can't see it. That's my Mickey Mantle card. I collect one of the best players that I can afford, one of the best cards that I consider of that player, the earliest I can get, the highest grade I can get. So I have an SGC 4.5 of Mickey Mantle, 1958 All-Star card. It's a beautiful card. Love it. It's also known, this 1958 Mantle All-Star card is also famous for being legendary broadcaster Bob Costas's favorite card, and he famously carried it in his wallet for years. So I imagine that probably wasn't a PSA 10. That's what I'm guessing. When asked why his Mantle card didn't get thrown out like the rest of the cards from Costas' childhood collection, he said, "It seemed like a sacrilege to throw it away, so I kept it in my wallet with my credit cards." That doesn't seem... Hey, it's pretty cool. Moving on to number 10, we'll go back to Willie, the Say Hey Kid Willie Mays All-Star card. Now, you notice that the 1958 Topps Baseball National League All-Star cards had blue backgrounds, and the American League had the red backgrounds. So if you're able to get a Mantle in the red with the red background and a Mays with the blue background in your card display, that looks pretty awesome. That looks pretty good. It's worth noting, this might be one of the best looking All-Star cards of all of them, this Willie Mays card. Now, of course, the Stan Musial All-Star card, Orlando Cepeda, his Giants rookie card, that's from this year. Ernie Banks with the Cubs. Ted Williams All-Star card. Frank Robinson, Cincinnati Reds. Rival Fence Busters. That was Willie Mays and Duke Snider on the same card. That was pretty awesome. The Giants versus the Dodgers. Very cool. And then Bob Lemon for the New York Yankees. All right. Roger Maris trivia. Let's talk about this. Something I found interesting about Maris and his record-breaking 1961 season, when he broke Babe Ruth's home run record, was that he was never intentionally walked that year. Can you imagine that? No doubt his accomplishment was still amazing, but both Mark McGwire and Barry Bonds, who beat Maris's record, never had Mickey Mantle batting after them. Aaron Judge, who did beat Maris's AL record a few years ago, did have Giancarlo Stanton batting behind him, so that should count for something. But to think that Maris was never intentionally walked that entire season one time because he had the Mick hitting behind him. So that kind of makes sense. Well, all right, that's what I got. Well, let me know what you think is your favorite of the 1958 Topps set. And keep an eye out for, we'll be doing a 1959 Topps set. But make sure you check out these other videos also, because those are good ones. We'll go back a couple years, check out the other ones. Whatever you do, make sure you have a happy hobby.